accuracy was mighty best. He simply walked the ball into the net. What a goal! United in the lead.
Everything you need to know about George Best is found in a moment in the 1968 European Cup final at Wembley Stadium. Extra time. The score level. 92,000 spectators present. Best picks up the ball just outside the Benfica penalty area, beats two defenders as though they are not there, shoulders one, and rolls the ball into an empty net. No panic. No fuss. Just genius. In 3 seconds of perfect movement. As breathing. He was 22 years old, and he had been doing things like that since he was a barefoot kid on the Belfast streets, when no one outside Belfast had ever heard of his existence. George Best was born on the 22nd of May 1946 in Belfast, Northern Ireland. He was raised in the Cregga estate, a small working-class neighbourhood where everyone played football on the streets, in schoolyards, car parks, or any other place where a ball could be kicked. His father Dickie was an iron turner, and his mother Anne did whatever she could to feed 6 children. It was not a comfortable life, but it was a football life, and Best was introduced to it almost as soon as he could walk. He is said to have brought a ball to bed when he was a small kid. Later, people who would see him dribble would realize that the game had been stitched into him at some molecular level, something that was practiced so early and so obsessively that it ceased to be a skill and became more of an instinct. The mid-1950s and the 1960s were also the years when Belfast was a city that was under increasing tension. The sectarianism and political instability, which were to burst into the Troubles, were already boiling beneath the surface of everyday life, and being raised in that atmosphere in which community, loyalty, and identity were issues of acute and even violent difference, molded a young man who, despite all his subsequent bravado, was inwardly reticent and circumspect. People who were close to him always said that he was naturally shy and introverted, which would be all but lost in his public image. The swagger was actual, yet it was, in a measure, armour. At the age of 15, he was noticed by Manchester United scout Bob Bishop playing in a game, and a telegram was dispatched back to Old Trafford that has since become one of the most famous messages in the history of football. "I think I have found you a genius." He was immediately invited to trial by the club. Best sailed across the Irish Sea, landed in Manchester, and remained a day before he became homesick. He wheeled about and walked home. He only agreed to go back after a discussion between the management of United and his parents. As he did, he spent 2 years in the quiet of the youth system of United, frequently putting in extra hours of dribbling to hone his skills and working on his weaker foot, long before the first team even heard his name correctly. The genius manager, Matt Busby, who had already rescued the club once after the disastrous air crash at Munich in 1958 that had claimed the lives of 8 of his players, spotted the teenager in training and decided to allow his talent to breathe instead of suffocating it with instructions. Even with a wound, the lad demonstrated what he could do, said Busby after Best had made his first appearance on the team. "Believe me, he isn't going to be just a good player. He's going to be one of the greatest." It was on the 14th of September 1963, in a match against West Bromwich Albion at Old Trafford, that it made its debut. Best was 17. He made his first appearance in the number 7 shirt, assisted United to a 1-0 victory, and was immediately sent back to the reserves, where he was to spend 3 months, the last time anyone would be able to keep him down. He played a key role in his second full season, when United became champions of the First Division in 1964-65, the first league victory of the club since the Munich disaster. Best was not yet 19. In March 1966, the next year, he created the performance that would forever change his life. United had a slender first leg advantage over Benfica in the quarter-final of the European Cup. Busby is said to have instructed his wingers to keep deep for the first 20 minutes and to keep things tight. Best was 19 and had other plans. He scored twice inside the opening 13 minutes as United ran out 5-1 winners in Lisbon, inflicting on Benfica their first ever home defeat in European competition. Shocked and enamoured at once, the Portuguese press christened him O Quinto Beetle, the fifth Beatle, a title that referred to his dark, mop-top hair, his charisma, which was easy, and the feeling that he was part of the same cultural phenomenon as the band in Liverpool, which had shaken the world. As the plane landed in England, Best stepped off the tarmac in a sombrero, and the front pages of all the newspapers the following day had a new superstar. He was a cultural icon who had hardly been seen in football. Best opened boutiques, signed endorsements, had film cameras and tabloid photographers trailing him everywhere, and became the first footballer to be treated like a rock star. Not just a fan, but an obsession. Not just a celebrity, but an icon. United manager after Busby would later comment that it was practically impossible to handle someone who was on the cover of every magazine in Britain. What the cameras seldom showed was the anxiety that was swirling beneath. Nevertheless, even with the swagger, those who were close to Best said that he would often be sick with nerves before big matches, which makes his composure during such critical times all the more impressive. It was also, by several reports, twice that Real Madrid, the most glamorous club in the world, approached him, and he refused both times, in honour of Busby and of United. The England goalkeeper Gordon Banks with a daring flick, and the goal was disallowed, a moment which encapsulated his relationship with the authorities in the game, who never quite knew what to do with this unpredictable man. The years since 1968 were a lengthy, convoluted unwind. United fell apart around him, and in the absence of Busby to shield him and the framework of a truly competitive team, Best started to lose his way. In one FA Cup match against Northampton Town in February 1970, he scored 6 goals, a record in the history of United in the post-war period. And yet the circumstances spoke a more sinister tale. A player of immense talents, bearing a club which could no longer suit him. He skipped training, had a falling out with management, went missing without a trace, and came back to deliver instances of brilliance that left discipline almost impossible to apply regularly. He confessed later that he was getting the sense that he was bearing the team all by himself, and that this was straining him psychologically. His mother, Anne, was also an alcoholic who succumbed to its effects, a painful parallel to the addiction that was also slowly eating her son. He left Manchester United in January 1974, aged 27. This was followed by a lengthy, peripatetic goodbye to football. Stockport, Cork Celtic, Fulham, Los Angeles Aztecs, San Jose Earthquakes, Hibernian, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, and a host of clubs in Australia, Hong Kong, and Ireland. The North American Soccer League provided him with new fans who had never witnessed him at his best, and he sometimes even gave them glimpses of genius that recalled to all what had been lost, including, it is said, nutmegging Johan Cruyff in a friendly, a move that made the Dutch legend applaud him immediately. He was said to be the best player on the field, even when wearing 2 size too large boots in a match in Hong Kong. He finally retired in the early 1980s, having scored 179 goals in 470 appearances for Manchester United and 239 goals in 604 career club matches in total. George Best passed away on November 25, 2005, aged 59, due to multiple organ failure caused by a lifetime of alcoholism. He had received a liver transplant in 2002, but continued to drink. The people of Belfast lamented and lamented. On what would have been his 60th birthday, Belfast City Airport was renamed George Best Belfast City Airport. In 2008, Manchester United erected a statue of the Holy Trinity of Best, Denis Law and Bobby Charlton outside Old Trafford, where it remains to this day. Pelé referred to him as the greatest player in the world. Maradona referred to him as the greatest. The shortest shorthand that is spread most persistently is the one which needs no argument. Maradona good, Pelé better, George best. He was a genius, and he was aware of it. He was a man, too, who was tormented by fame, by expectation, by addiction, and by the difference between what he could do with a football and what he could do with everything else. His humor never failed him. "I spent a lot of money on booze, birds, and fast cars," he once remarked. "The rest I just squandered." Behind the jest, however, was a man who had made the game prettier in 10 years than most players do in a lifetime. A lad of Belfast who had come to a great club with a telegram and a genius, and in one glorious decade had made football seem to be approaching the nature of an art.